agreement. The reason that I voted against it is because we heard from economists, we heard from our rating agencies that the minimum that we had to do was $4 trillion in debt reduction over the next 10 years. So I'm so heartened that all of us are here today saying that to the committee, please, we will be with you, show some courage, go for at least $4 trillion in debt reduction over the next 10 years. Let's show the American people that we can set expectations here of what they expect of us. And let's make sure that we do it and show some courage. We have to take on tax reform. We have to take on entitlement reform. And I ran for the United States Senate for one reason, and that is I talked about my children. I know that if we don't address this fiscal crisis, that we will not be passing on the same quality of life in America that we have had the privilege of enjoying, and that's what it's all about. So I say it's time for courage here, and the fact that so many of us would get together shows you that there is a bipartisan group that is ready to address this. And one final point, it took two parties to get us $14 trillion in debt, and it's going to take two parties to get us out of this debt and this mess that we're in. So thank you.
Hey, thanks everybody. I'll be brief. It's such a joy to be here with so many people from both parties. I want to say a special thank you to Mike Johans for the work that he's done over the past few months with me to see if we could help assemble people on letters that say things like, we know we need to do discretionary spending cuts, we know we need entitlement reform, we know we need a tax reform. But the voices that I want to reflect to you today are the voices of the people of the state of Colorado. We are a third Republican, we are a third independent, we are a third Democratic. And for 2.5 years, I've traveled the state having town hall meetings, and we've talked about this problem. And they're clear on what they want. They want us to materially address the problem. That's the $4 trillion number that Ken Conrad talked about. They want to know that we're all in it together, that we all have something to contribute to the solution. They emphatically want it to be bipartisan, because they don't trust either party's go-it-alone approach on this. The only thing I would add to any of that is that whatever solution we come up with has to satisfy the capital markets, because as Ken Conrad will tell you, every percentage that our interest rates rise is going to add $1.3 trillion to our debt. Now, this time when I went home during this recess, every single town hall meeting started with somebody saying, "What's wrong with you guys? Why can't you work together to solve this problem?" Local elected officials would say, "We've got big problems that we're trying to solve in our communities, and we're finding a way to work together. What is wrong with you? What is the deficit of cooperation that Washington has? Not just the debt and deficit that's on our balance sheet." And so to see this number of senators come together, assembled on the general parameters of where we need to go, I think is a great step forward, and is something that the people of my state are going to see as a very hopeful sign at a time when what we need more than anything else is to project confidence from this town that we can actually get our house in order so that they can get the economy moving again. So thank you. And Mark, are we going to take questions?
I think actually we've got a lot of senators.
Okay.
Dick was part of the group. Do you want to make a comment, Dick? And then if there was Bob Corker, a couple more quick comments from anybody, and then.
Well, thanks to. I'll be very brief. Thanks to Mark and Saxby for bringing us together here. I was part of a group of 18 in the Bowles-Simpson Commission, part of the Gang of Six, and now part of the group of 36 or whatever. Growing. And what's wrong with this picture? Because if you take a look at this picture of gathered senators, it's exactly the opposite of what the American people think is going on in Capitol Hill. What we're trying to tell you is there is a real, honest conversation taking place between Democrats and Republicans about tackling the biggest financial challenge this country has ever faced. Don't get me wrong, we see things differently. That's going to happen. But we do believe there is enough common ground that we can come together and say to the special committee, please take a look at our work product. Take a look at where we are today. Use this to build on, to really address your charge of $1.5 trillion and go beyond it to a $4 trillion deficit reduction. We're going to have differences about timing and dealing with the recession. I'm going to feel strongly and continue to feel strongly about protecting America's safety net, the most vulnerable people among us. But at the bottom line, I've found over and over again in these meetings is there's a lot more that brings us together than divides us. And if we will sit in good faith and work together, Democrats and Republicans, we can solve this problem and many more.
I've got a Republican colleague. Well, let's kind of make sure we keep switching back and forth, and then we'll open it up for. Yeah. This is not exactly a shy group.
So I appreciate everything that's been said prior to me coming up, and I know that most of us believe the number one threat to our country today, the number one threat, has been our inability to deal with the issue that we're all here today focused on. I know that most Americans are actually focused on the economy, and I would say they go hand in hand. To me, the very best way to deal with the issue that Americans in their daily lives are most concerned about is the economy. This short-term economy is for us to ensure that we've dealt with the long-term issues that this group is assembled here today about. I really believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, every cell in my body says to me, if we can build confidence by dealing with the longer-term issues that this group is assembled today, that Saxby and Mark and others have brought together, that is the very best thing we can do to stimulate the economy for the short term. So to me, they go hand in hand. And the very best jobs and economic package that could possibly happen for this country would be for this super committee to do exactly what this group today assembled is urging them to do. We're here to support them and tell them, as so many people have said, we want to support their efforts. We hope they'll go much further than their base case and their mandate. And if they do, and if they do it appropriately, with the concepts that have been laid out, we want to be there with them. So I thank all of you for bringing us together.
Let me just say that just for the for another new member such as my colleague Kelly, I've never been more proud of being part of a group that has come together in a bipartisan effort to move this country forward. And I think it sends a strong message to America that we can work together and we will work together. Proudest day I have was when we showed up maybe a month ago, and there were 50 of us, all like-minded, wanting to fix the big problem. In my great state of West Virginia, the people were concerned about the next generation. Not as much about the next election, but the next generation. And they're going to be very proud to see that there's a group of senators like-minded working together. You know, when former Chairman Mueller, Joint Chiefs of Staff, said the greatest challenge we have as Americans is our finances. I was concerned about that. He could have picked an awful lot of problems that we have around the world and challenges we have, but he said the finances. And I think that is our greatest challenge. And I think you see a group of senators here willing to meet that challenge and go beyond. So I'm willing to work any way, shape, or form that I can to move this. And as my colleague Kelly had said, she voted against for certain reasons, but she's looking for the same result. I voted for it, for the debt bill that we had previously. I voted because I believe that the committee that they put together that we're supporting, the 12 members, have the ability to go large, to go big and fix a big-time problem. So we both are looking for the same results. We had different ways of coming at it, and it shows you how we can come together as a group. Thank you.
Anybody before we get to questions? Whoops, sorry.
Let's open it up. Fire away, and we'll.
Are you offering any specifics to the super committee on how to go bigger, on specific areas where you agreed on taxes and
I hope all of you saw the chart we had up here, which lays out principles that we are all agreed upon. We don't think it is the function of this group to tell that committee how they need to do it. You'll see that one of our bullet points is that we hope they will use as a foundation the other bipartisan efforts that are out there, whether it's Simpson Bowles or Rivlin Domenici or the Gang of Six, but that's their job.
Or Coach Wyden, who's probably done the most of extensive work on tax reform and needs to be in part of the discussion too. So, you wanted to add that?
It's a good question. I think individually and in some cases collectively, we've worked on introduced bipartisan legislation that addresses expensive cost overruns in Medicare and Medicaid. ways to fix the Postal Service to save tens of billions of dollars, to save tens of billions of dollars in Medicare and Medicaid, ways to deal with 15,000 pieces of surplus property that we don't use, a $300 billion tax gap, rescission powers, enhancing the president's rescission powers, 40 co-sponsors on that alone. All of that legislation, almost all that legislation has bipartisan support. There have been hearings on that legislation, and to the extent you can have legislation that's shovel-ready, there's a lot of it that's ready to go, and a lot of it is supported by folks in this group.
Second.